Yahoo Fantasy Baseball Week 8 action in the Tucson Toros group. We're going to take a look at Bronx Bombers taking on the Androids. And it was the biggest win of the week for any team. Bronx Bombers picked up the win here 9-1. Clear-cut victory for Bombers. Bombers is now 34, 42, and 4 on the year, while the Androids is now 27, 48, and 5. For Bombers, this was the second victory of the year for that team. First ever win against Androids. Their all-time series after 3 matchups, 1, 1, and 1. While Androids, this was the worst loss of the season for that team. That team now slumps into last place in the standings. For Bombers, season highs in average and the best whip of the year for that team, while setting a season low in pitching wins. Androids had season lows in runs, stolen bases, average, and strikeouts. Also, no saves in 7 of the first 8 weeks of the year. That's definitely a category that Androids might want to take a look at shoring up. Bronx Bombers won in everything but pitching wins. It took all 9 other categories. Runs, homers, RBIs, stolen bases were all close categories. ERA was fairly close as well, but everything fell to the way of Bombers when all was said and done. Bronx Bombers used just 9 players out of the 10 starting slots available. Only 9 were filled all week. 5 players hit over 300 for the week. 5 players also had a homer. That's good production, spreading out the production there amongst multiple players. And David Ortiz continues to continue on his hot streak. 3 homers, 9 RBIs, hit 391 for the week. All 9 players had at least an RBI as well. So everybody across the board contributed this week for Bombers, led to a decisive victory. For Androids, definitely some roster issues. Only uses 9 players right now. 1 player is inactive, while 2 players are on the DL. Most notably, Kendry Morales just went on the DL for the Angels. He hit a grand slam this week to win a game for the Angels, but broke his leg celebrating. He may not play the rest of the season. That's a devastating blow to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, as well as the Androids. Also, production-wise, just 1 player hit above 300. 4 players hit under 200. When you're not setting the lineup and you're not using the players to the fullest extent and they don't play well on top of that, you're going to be hard-pressed to win any categories. Benji Molina also, he had a rough week. He hit 0.56 for the week. He only had 1 RBI. Justin Upton had a run, and 0.56 was his average for the week. And Jason Kubel was the lone bright spot for Androids. He hit 2 homers, had 7 RBIs. 375 average. Kubel started out the season, not looking too good. So Kubel's bounced back a little bit. Definitely the lone bright spot on a struggling Androids offense. Bronx Bombers dominated pitching. Worst pitcher was James Shields. He had a 6.08 ERA, but he had 8 strikeouts in his start, so still found a way to contribute to the statistics. Jonathan Bronxton for the Dodgers picked up 3 saves for Bronx Bombers and had a 0 ERA for the week. Also, we've made note in the last few weeks about Ryan Rowland-Smith. He's struggled mightily for the Seattle Mariners. He had a 0 ERA. Ben Sheets has had some struggles, coming back from missing pretty much an entire season. He calmed down this week. And Rick Porcello, he's been expected to be pretty big. He had a quiet week as well. So all 3 of those guys have been definitely hurting Bronx Bombers week in and week out. They all pieced it together and held their own this week. Androids had 3 winners, but no saves from the 4 relievers in the starting lineup, so that's going to hurt. And Javier Vasquez had a 7.94 ERA. Frank Francisco, he got the boot as the closer for the Rangers. He's no longer closing. He only contributed 1 K, had a 3 whip on the week. So Francisco's basic role on the Android squad has been diminished quite a bit and really doesn't contribute any fantasy value right now. Also, Joe Blanton, he struggled for the Phillies. He's probably the Phillies' worst starting pitcher right now. He had an 8.44 ERA for the week. So Android's struggling on offense and in pitching. Next week, we're taking a look ahead. Bronx Bombers, heading into Week 9, is now 11th in the standings, so climbed into postseason play. 7 games out of 6, so 7 games out of the playoffs, but 11th would make the consolation round right now. That team's taking on Metropolitans in Week 9. They only faced off 1 time last season, and Metropolitans picked up the victory. So look at Bombers here to try and avenge that loss. While the Androids is last place in the standings now after a good week by a couple other bad teams. Androids drops to the bottom of the league, 6.5 games out of 12th. So 6.5 games out of postseason play, taking on another team that's been struggling, Woodallas. Androids beat Woodilas in their only matchup last year, so we'll see if Androids can extend that to 2-0 all-time in Week 9 play.